Okay, so I think I ended up with the misunderstood. So there are several barriers to having good partnerships, home and school collaboration. One is the misunderstood. We've already talked about the first one here. The language of school is second nature to those of us who've been in the schools for years, but it's new to parents, so you have to remember that. Also, the process of school, like what happens in school, most parents aren't really all that aware of it. And then you have to remember that many parents have had terrible, bad experiences in school when they were young. And so they are they're reticent or don't realize how things have changed. Very true in special ed. We have a lot of special kids who are in special ed whose parents were in special ed who remember it at a very different time, and they don't understand that their kids are getting a very different kind of education than they did. The unspoken is another problem. Think to yourself, why are important thoughts often unspoken? What are some of your fears? There's fears of parents and fears of professionals. We talked about the evaluation versus investigation. That's more for special ed. But we as teachers and other kinds of professionals, you get frustrated. The parents don't appreciate sometimes what you've done. Usually they will, but you're feeling like I spend all this time on your kid, and now you're treating me this way. So these are things to watch out for. Then there's the defense mechanisms, and let me start out by saying everyone has used a defense mechanism sometime. We all do. Actually, we use them a lot of the time. Denial, we're going to talk more about that, but that's the most primitive and in some way the most difficult to overcome because it's the idea that you say it's simply not true. It frequently occurs when we have someone who passes away suddenly. You have a friend who you talked to just a couple days ago and they pass away, and excuse me, your first thought is, it can't be. I just talked to them. But it also can be like, my kid's not like that. That's a school problem. It's not his problem. It's not my problem. That's a denial. Excuse me. Regression is when, let's say you're sitting in traffic and there's a horrible traffic jam and you throw a temper tantrum in your car. That's regression. You don't normally throw temper tantrums, but something has made you feel very anxious, very angry, etc., etc. Okay. Reaction formation. I'll give you a cute example first. A boy who torments a girl on the playground. And if you just looked at that, you'd think he hates her, but actually he likes her, and that's why he's doing it. Or the people who are very angry or very upset about something, but come off as being super relaxed and everything is fine. Projection, I'm not mad, you're mad. That's what projection is. And we've talked about this actually in class with some examples. And it's where you imagine that the feeling you're really having is somebody else's feeling. Displacement is you have a bad day at school or work and you come home and take it out on somebody else. You're not really angry at that person. You are angry at somebody else at work, or upset with them or humiliated by them or something, but you take it out on somebody else. Undoing being, let's say you have these really angry feelings towards somebody, and in order to kind of protect yourself from that, the anger, and that it makes you anxious, you do what's called undoing. You be super nice to them. You're seething inside, but on the outside you're being really nice to them. I'm going to talk mostly about sublimation and assertiveness. You can look up compensation, but they're similar. Sublimation simply means you're channeling your feelings, your upset feelings, into something else. So you have a breakup with your significant other and you do a home improvement project. Okay. Assertiveness, not not sure that's really a defense mechanism, but you come off as assertive, and you're probably thinking, well, can't some of these be good? Well, I'm not going to give that away quite yet. Okay, so what are the purposes and reasons for defense mechanisms? The main reason, you can read it right here. If there is information or emotional conflict, pain and anxiety. There's all sorts of different reasons here. You can look at these. And it can be, I should have put a little, I don't know why I messed this up, but I didn't put the little thing here, but the hyphen. But it can just be, and I think most of the time it's just internal feelings. But all of these can lead to defense mechanisms. Just give a couple of examples. Addiction. Somebody's addicted to alcohol, and you try to talk to them about it and say, I don't drink too much, I'm fine. So are defense mechanisms good or bad? We usually, when I do this in class, I have you kind of vote on it or go to different sides of the room. Well, I think you know what my answer is, because my magic words, it depends, because some defense mechanisms let us put those those negative emotions that we feel bad about into positive actions. For example, the example I gave with the sublimation, where somebody breaks up with their significant other, and so they spend all that energy redoing their bedroom. Defense mechanisms also allow us to cope in the short term. When somebody passes away, it's hard to deal with everything all at once. And so this allows us to regroup, to be in a little bit of denial for a short period of time. And some allow us to diffuse situations. For example, using humor can be a defense mechanism. It's one that I use a lot. When something gets real difficult, when people are starting to argue and the situation is getting pretty tense, injecting a little humor into it can really diffuse that situation. Are you really feeling humorous about it? Maybe, maybe not, but you're using that as a positive defense mechanism. Then you can read this. Some of these mechanisms just give us pleasure. Like when you break up with somebody and you redo your bedroom, that's going to look good to you. It can also improve relationships. And if you're aggressive and say, hey, I'm not going to put up with this anymore, sometimes that can be, I wouldn't consider that a defense mechanism, but that can be very positive. Defense mechanisms become or are detrimental when they limit our ability to deal with reality. Okay? Because then we can't cope with things and we can't find solutions to things. So, for example, saying, there's nothing wrong with my kid, there's nothing wrong with me, it's all you, you're a bad teacher. That allows a parent to deal with their feeling of humiliation in the short term, but it doesn't help them to become partners for you or the kids. Why do people go into denial? Because sometimes reality sucks. And denial can feel really good. No, there's no problem. Denial is a very primitive mechanism, and it's extremely strong. So you're not going to argue somebody out of denial. It may not be absolute even when it seems like it is. So sometimes if you've gotten trust with the person, sometimes you can help them see through it. But at the center is some kind of unspoken fear. You can look this over. There's two main points. Understand yourself in dealing with the denial, and understanding others. Don't try to know your own vulnerabilities and what you're sensitive to. Don't expect perfection of yourself, just honesty. The most important thing about understanding others, whether they're parents or other teachers or children, is what are they afraid of and what do they want and need. So please read through these. and then you then you can, if you want to pause it for a second and then go on. The spoken. Okay, how do you deal with anger? This is not the end all and be all of how you deal with anger, but let me just tell you some parent perspectives. The parents want you to know that they're good parents. We already talked about this one. A lot of this stuff is going to be new to them, especially if you're in an early grade like kindergarten or first grade. And by the way, there's a huge difference between preschool and kindergarten. So parents may need help, just like the kids do, transitioning. Remind me that I did the right thing in what I'm doing, if they have. If you make a recommendation, understand that they may not be able to follow that right away. Parents don't want you to see a weakness or a label. They want you to see the kid as a whole kid. Sometimes parents are going to ask the same questions over and over again. What do? You answer them over and over again. You never want to take hope away from anybody. That's a friend, a parent, yourself, a child. You don't want to lie to them, but you don't want to take away hope. Understand that parents and kids are going to take a while to trust you. And when you're explaining things, parents will do better with concrete examples like data. It's great to say to a parent, tell me what you hope I will see in your child. Ask a lot of questions. You can say, I try to be sensitive, but sometimes I have a lot of work and deadlines, but yes, I will call you once a week. Ask parents how they want information, especially for parents who aren't returning your phone calls, let's say. Sometimes you have to emphasize a weakness, like your kid is really below grade level in reading, and I want to refer them for a special education evaluation. You have to explain why sometimes you have to emphasize that. When you're talking to parents, especially if you're anxious and that's going to make you talk real fast, ask them, am I going too slow for you or too fast? And it's okay to say, I have to tell you, this is my first parent-teacher conference ever. I'm kind of nervous about this. You can also redefine conflict and anger. Conflict, if there's no conflict, there's no reason for change. Okay? If you're completely comfortable with everything that's going on, you're not going to accept change. And being somewhat self-aware is extremely important. In class, we do an anger activity. What I want you to know is that many people in my field of psychology and education believe that anger is a secondary emotion. So that you're not ever just plain angry, but you're angry about something. You've been humiliated. You spent hours doing something and weren't appreciated. You have been dissed for some reason. Somebody stood you up. Somebody said they were going to do one thing and did something different. So when you're feeling angry or you see people who are angry, think about what it might stand for. I think you'll find that a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times it'll be covering up anxiety. So here's some things that to do when faced with an angry person. A couple of the most important things are try to slow your breathing down a little bit. Focus on the primary concern. Try not to get sidetracked. Try to find small places of agreement. Don't try to prove you're right. Try not to take it personally. I shouldn't say don't take it personally, because we're all going to take that personally. But try not to get defensive about it. And really the most important thing is that if you're in a meeting and things are not going well, and I've done this many times, I just say to the parent, do you think it might be best if we made another meeting so we can both think about this? I really want to think about the things you've been saying. I've given you some resources here. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will see you next Thursday.